Hello, Assalamu alaikum. I welcome you to my channel, The Explore with Dr. Asif. In this video, I will discuss literary terms that start with letter H and end with letter K. In the first video, I have discussed literary terms that start with letter A, that is amphitheater, and end with G, that is Gothic. So let's start. These terms have been taken from J.A. Cudden's Dictionary of Literary Terms. The first term, haiku, a Japanese verse form consisting of 17 syllables in three lines of 5, 7, and 5 syllables. Such a poem expresses a single idea, image, or feeling. In fact, it is a kind of miniature snap in verse. It was first established as a form in the 16th century. Next term is hamartia. In Greek, it means error, primarily an error of judgment which may arise from ignorance or some moral shortcoming. Generally, we don't attribute hamartia to moral shortcoming. Harlem Renaissance, a literary and cultural movement among Black Americans which flourished from early in the 1920s to the 1930s. It was also called the New Negro Movement or Negro Renaissance. Heroic couplet, it comprises rhymed decasyllables, nearly always in iambic pentameter rhymed in pairs, one of the commonest metrical forms in English poetry but of uncertain origin. It is generally thought that it developed with Chaucer, possibly because he was familiar with the decasyllable rhymed couplets. Homily in Greek it means discourse, either a sermon delivered to an assembled congregation or a written work of an admonitory kind edifying the reader morally. Two well-known books of homilies were published in 1547 and 1563 and appointed by the Church of England to be read at divine service. Humanism is a broad term which encompasses human-centered philosophies as opposed to those centered on religion and the supernatural. Though it exhibits some continuities with Renaissance humanism, modern humanism is a post-Enlightenment intellectual disposition. Humanists contend that we are all rational beings and seek rational solutions to human problems. They generally hold that society is increasingly perfectible and so trust in science and progress. Humors, the term humor is derived from Latin humor, which means moisture, hence humid, was used in the Middle Ages and during the Renaissance period in the tradition of Hippocratic pathology and physiology to denote the four humors of the body. These depended on the four fluids blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. The admixture or commingling of these determined a person's disposition, character, mind, morality, and temperament. The humors released spirits or vapors which affected the brain and thence a person's behavior. Hybridity, a term used in post-colonial theory and cultural studies and most recently in discussions relating to globalization. Hybridity is the characteristic of a culture or cultural form produced by the interaction of two possibly more separate parent cultures or forms. Post-colonial theorists have focused on the hybridity which emerges as a consequence of interaction between peoples in colonial and post-colonial contact zones. Hymn. Hymn means a song in praise of God or hero. Early examples are Homeric hymn to Demeter and the first Delphic hymn. Many Latin hymns date from the Middle Ages. Among English-speaking poets of note who have attempted the form, one should mention George Herbert, Dryden, Milton, William Blake, William Cooper, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, John Greenleaf Whittier, Tennyson, Christina Rossetti, and Rudyard Kipling. Hyperbole in Greek means overcasting, a figure of speech which contains an exaggeration for emphasis. Hyperbole is a figure of speech and literary device that creates heightened effect through deliberate exaggeration. Hyperbole is often a boldly overstated or exaggerated claim or statement that adds emphasis without the intention of being literally true. In rhetoric and literature, hyperbole is often used for serious comic or ironic effects. Hyperbole was very common in Tudor and Jacobean drama and in heroic drama. Hyperreal Hyperreal is basically a postmodern term The term hyperreal and hyperreality suggests something that is above or in excess reality, and have been associated with the work of French theorist Jean Baudrillard. In his work Simulation and Simulacra, Baudrillard defines the hyperreal as the meticulous reduplication of the real, preferably through an other reproductive medium such as photography. Hypertext, a text usually electronic, which enables its readers to move instantaneously to other parts of the same text or to other texts. The most famous deployment of hypertext is, of course, the World Wide Web, where hyperlinks enable users to move between different texts or different parts of the same text. Ideograph, a written symbol, a picture of the thing itself, or a representation of the idea. The Chinese and Japanese languages are ideographic. Ideology, very important term, especially in Marxist context, designates any comprehensive system of political thought, fascism, neoliberalism, democratic socialism, articulated or otherwise tacitly supported by an individual or institution. In political, literary, and cultural theory, the term owes much to the writings of Karl Marx and the subsequent Marxist criticism. In the German ideology, co-written with Friedrich Engels, Marx asserts that ideology corresponds to the dominant ideas held by any particular society. Ideology is inscribed in every aspect of our life, from our thinking to actions. So it's not just about ideas or concepts or philosophy. Ideology expresses itself in concrete actions. Idiolect, the aggregate of speech habits peculiar to an individual. An idiolect is the distinctive speech of an individual, a linguistic pattern regarded as unique speakers of a person's language or dialect. Illocutionary act, illocutionary act, an act which is carried out by a speaker in the actual utterance of words. For example, an order, a promise, the striking of an oath. Images, a group of poets who were prominent immediately before the First World War. The best known were Ezra Pound, Emil T.E. Hull, Richard Eldington, H.D. Hilda Doolittle. They believed that a hard, clear image was essential to us. They also believed that poetry should use the language of everyday speech and have complete freedom in subject matter. Pound edited the first anthology, Des Images, and in 1915, Emil published some Imagist poets. This work contained a statement of the ideals of Imagism. Imagism as a movement was part of modernist movement in literature and art. Imperialism, Latin imperium, power, authority, dominion, empire. Imperialism might be defined as a strategy whereby a state aims to extend its control forcibly beyond its own borders over other states and peoples. Such control is usually not just military but economic and cultural. A ruling state will often impose its own terms of trade, its political ideals, its own cultural values, and often its own language upon a subject state. Impressionism, another modernist movement, the term very probably derives from Claude Monet's painting Impression, Soleil Levant, first exhibited in Paris in 1874. The Impressionists were a school of painters who were particularly concerned with the transitory effects of light, and they wished to depict the fleeting impression from a subjective point of view. They were not interested in precise representation. The resulting impression depended on the perception of the spectator. Abundant examples of this technique are to be found in the works of James Joyce, Marcel Proust, Dorothy Richardson, and Virginia Woolf. Intentional fallacy, the term in new criticism, the error of criticizing and judging a work of literature by attempting to assess what the writer's intention was and whether or not he has fulfilled it rather than concentrating on the work itself. In intentional fallacy, we counter the trend in which we try to identify writers' intentions in the work. This point of view is especially noticeable in the criticism of I.A. Richards and T.S. Eliot in the 20s, and that of the American new critics in the 1940s and 50s. In 1946, W.K. Wimsatt, in collaboration with Monroe D. Beardsley, published his essay, The Intentional Fallacy, a document central to the development of modern critical theory. Interlude, a short entertainment put on between the courses of a feast or the acts of a play. During the Middle Ages and up to the 16th century, The term was used to describe a variety of dramatic entertainments. Interpellation, the term commonly associated with Louis Althusser's theory of subjects construction by ideology. Louis Althusser is famous for his ISAs, the ideological state apparatuses. In his essay Ideology and Ideological State Apparatuses, Althusser uses the example of police healing to show how subjects are constructed by ideological state apparatuses such as police, education, and various other institutions. Intertextuality, a term coined by Julia Kristeva in 1966 to denote the interdependence of literary texts, the interdependence of any one literary text with all those that have gone before it. Her contention was that a literary text is not an isolated phenomenon, but is made up of a mosaic of quotations, and that any text is the absorption and transformation of another. In other words, all texts echo earlier texts, and there is nothing without context. Invective, speech or writing which is denunciatory, abusive, or vituperative. The term is related to the verb inveigh, to bring in or introduce or denounce, as in the phrase inveigh against. Invocation, an appeal or request for help or inspiration, which is addressed to a muse or deity. In epic, it is a literary convention. It usually comes at or near the beginning of a poem, especially in epic poetry. Homer's Iliad, Milton's Paradise Lost, and Pope's mock epic, The Rape of the Lock, start with an invocation. Irony, the expression of one's meaning by using language that normally signifies the opposite, typically for humorous or emphatic effect. First recorded in Plato's Republic, where it has approximately the meaning of a glib and underhand way of taking people in. A literary technique originally used in Greek tragedy by which the full significance of a character's words or actions is clear to the audience or reader, although unknown to the character. Kafkaesque, characteristic of the style, tone, and attitudes of the writings of Franz Kafka, and especially the kind of nightmarish atmosphere which he was capable of creating through the pervasive menace of sinister, impersonal forces, the feelings of loss of identity, the evocation of guilt and fear, and the sense of evil that permeates the twisted and absurd logic of ruling powers. Kitchen sink drama, a term which became popular in Great Britain in the middle and late 50s, often used derogatorily, it applied to plays which, in realistic fashion, showed aspects of working class life at the time. The implication was that the play centered metaphorically or psychologically, and in some cases literally, on the kitchen sink. John Osborne's Look Back in Anger is an example of kitchen sink drama. Thank you. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the notification button. God bless.